Okay, now that we've learned how to solve for missing sides and angles using trig and Pythagorean theorem, we're going to start applying these to problems that we could see in the real world. In order to do that, there are two terms that we need to learn, and the first is the angle of elevation, and the second is the angle of depression. The key to remember in finding both of these angles is that they are formed by one horizontal line and the line of sight. So there always has to be some kind of horizontal line, whether it's the ground or the line of sight of something that's up on an elevation in the air, or but basically something that's higher up. So, um, so again, always look for the horizontal line first, and then you can find the angle of elevation or depression from there. So an angle of elevation is kind of what it sounds like. It's the angle formed by the horizontal line and the person's line of sight looking up to something. So elevation, we look up. So if you find a horizontal line and the angle to get to the other side, you have to go up, that would be an angle of elevation. Okay, so right here, this is your angle of elevation. Again, always with a horizontal line. On the other hand, an angle of depression is the angle formed by a horizontal line and a person's line of sight to an object below. So the person in the hot air balloon, if they're looking down to the ground, that would be an angle of depression. So if you find a horizontal line and you're looking down to get to the other side of your angle, then that would be an angle of depression. Okay. Angles of elevation and depression are always congruent because if you can see, all horizontal lines are parallel. And so we have parallel lines being cut by a transversal, which is the line of sight. And so these would be alternate interior angles. So if you know the angle of elevation, you also know the angle of depression. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be applying um, angles of elevation and depression to a particular problem. So for example, we might ask you in a problem to find the height of the hot air balloon that the person is looking at. If you know that the angle of elevation is 38 degrees, this would be the height of the hot air balloon, and this would be the person's distance on the ground away from the hot air balloon right below it. So we can use trig to find this. In some cases, we'll use Pythagorean theorem, but of course, again, when we deal with angles, that's trigonometry. Pythagorean theorem only deals with side lengths. So um, we'll always form right triangles, and then using those right triangles and then the angle of elevation or depression, we'll label our sides and apply some sort of trig um, ratio to it. And please, again, make sure to write down 3 questions about this topic, and we'll talk about it next class. See you then.